As a new year begins, as we face some of the same challenges as last year and then some new ones, I think it's helpful to remember this. Life is like a song. Just as a song has its own verses, with each verse with its own words and its own mood, its own theme, so your life has its own verses with all of these unique things too. Maybe think about it like this. Verse 1 is your infancy, your first tender years. And what's the music like? Well, with a melody that's innocent yet really curious, this verse reveals your firsts, your first words, your first steps, your first developments in mind, in body, the first discoveries of really basic but amazing things like cause and effect. Put food in the baby, baby's happy. Dirty diaper, baby not happy. The people who help you out in this verse, what are they? Your mother, your father, your grandparents, your siblings, your church family, what are they? They provide this warm accompaniment that enriches this verse. The melody here is soft, slow. Don't rush it. It's soft and slow, but so beautiful in its simplicity. That's verse 1. Verse 2, the tempo, the speed of your song, it begins to quicken, right? Because now you can run, now you can jump, now you can play, now you can memorize things and use your imagination more and more. Now you can meet people, form new relationships. And this verse keeps getting quicker and quicker. You can't slow it down until finally, before you know it, you begin verse 3, the verse of adolescence. The verse of the teenager. Parents who are hearing this verse, they say it can sound mysterious, frustrating. Those living this verse themselves, they might hear something uncomfortable, something awkward with notes that don't belong as they try to figure out what their melody in life is. And there are all sorts of other sounds. Some might hear the first sweet notes of love. For others, that warm parental accompaniment begins to fade away. And their song begins to take on the nature of a solo piece. What most agree on, however, is that even though this verse feels like it takes forever, it seems like it's never going to end, the truth is, it's over before you know it. And so you begin verse 4. The verse many of you are in right now. Adulthood. Here the orchestra strengthens your song with this kaleidoscope of sounds. A career, bills, taxes, owning expensive things, and all the responsibilities of adult life. Give this verse, verse 4, these deep, serious bass notes. But again, there are other sounds happening here. Maybe the tender harmony of love and marriage becomes a prominent theme in this verse. And what's that? You hear, maybe once more, that simple, beautiful sound that reveals the presence of children in your life. Though from this perspective, it's much more chaotic, much more staccato, maybe, more uncontrollable in nature. And you hear other complicated things too, like this blend of proud but sad tones. As those children keep growing, you can't stop them. They grow older and older, and they fight battles that you can't help them win now, and they need you less and less. But there's other happy music here too. There's the bright splashes of things like grandchildren or grandnieces and grandnephews. And toward the end of this verse, it's verse 4, the orchestra begins to fade. The sounds and themes that fought for space in your song for so long, they become softer and softer. So what's left? Well, what remains is a melody. A melody ringing richly with memories and experience. Maybe some wisdom too. So verse 4 inevitably gives way to verse 5. I think you know what I'm describing here. The tempo, the speed of your song becomes slower and slower. And you look back. This is when you look back on the verses of your life and you hear those old melodies again and those long ago, almost forgotten harmonies. Looking through a photo album is just that, isn't it? It's like replaying the songs of your life over and over again. You hear again those melodies of joy and happiness, of peace, of thanksgiving. You hear full well just how blessed your life has been, but that's not all you hear. You know the difference between a major key and a minor key? Do you hear the minor keys too? Losses, regret, sorrow. The times when your song, it seemed to lose its beauty, turning instead into this terrible cacophony of sadness. To not acknowledge those moments would be dishonest. Before you know it, maybe you notice that your song has, in a way, returned to the beginning. It'll happen to every one of us. Your fifth verse, it starts looking a lot like your first verse. It takes on that simplicity, that helplessness, that uncontrollable nature, and the organs which give life, which give sound to your song. They become tired of playing. They give up the tune one after another until your fifth verse ends like your first verse began, in silence. I guess at this point, happy or not, life is like a song. There's a part of your life that I haven't mentioned yet, a part of your song that I haven't mentioned yet, though. Many songs have something called a refrain. You know what that is. A refrain is words and music that are repeated throughout a song, right? So if we're comparing your life to a song, I hope it's important to ask, what's the refrain of your life? Let's talk about some music, some styles of music, and get to the bottom of that. It's not too popular today, but there's a style of music called the blues. Familiar with that, right? What are blues songs about? Well, it's in the name. They're usually about something sad, about being blue. It's this form of song that captures the frustrations of life, often by repeating those frustrations over and over again. If you've listened to a blues song, you know this. Here, I can give you an example of a blues song that does this. It's a song called Stormy Monday. So I'm going to read 4 lines from this song, and I hope you'll understand what I mean by a song form that captures frustration by repeating it. Here's the first 4 lines. They call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. That's the first 2 lines. Here's the next 2. They call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. It just repeats. Captures some frustration of life and repeats it. In this case, how, everybody's fed up with Monday because you're supposed to return to work, right? But hey, Tuesday's just as bad. That's a nice uplifting song, right? It's a blues song. And what I want you to think about is that the refrain in your life? Is it like that? And certainly you've met people like this, but are you like this, or can you be like this? Are you constantly focusing on the negative? When people are around you, is that what they're hearing? Happens so easily. You sing the bad, painful notes of life so loudly that you overpower completely the good ones that God has let remain, that God by His mercy has let remain in your life. Your refrain, what you repeat throughout your life, is this negativity. Is that what you're singing? you turn on the radio and flip to, have you heard of something called a top 40 station? It's a station that plays today's greatest hits, according to someone, right? If you do that, you might notice something. And what I'm about to say isn't true for every song you'll hear there, but it's certainly true for many of them. Those songs, many modern songs, and I suppose this isn't a modern thing, maybe this is a timeless thing, but those songs are all about me. They're all about me getting what I want, or me being praised or glorified in some way. An example of this is really easy to find. The number one song on the Billboard Top or Hot 100 list, which is just a thing that tracks what music is popular right now. The number one song on that list during the Christmas season, it's not a song about Jesus, which I don't think any of us would have expected it to be, sadly. But it's not a song about really any theme of Christmas. It's not a song about spreading Christmas cheer or being kind because it's the Christmas season. It's not about that at all. It's a song by an artist called Mariah Carey, and the song is called All I Want for Christmas Is You. Oh, sounds romantic, maybe. It sounds nice. It's about love or something like that. Is it? Or is it about what I want? What I want to get? That's our culture. Is that you, too? Is the song you're singing, the refrain in your life, does it have that flavor of a top 40 station where you're singing, you're living primarily for yourself, and do all the other voices, all the other harmonies, all the other sounds that exist and live beside you, do they become muted and soft? Have you noticed this? Because the melody of you and what you want dominates the airwaves. Do you know what kind of sound that is? Is that a nice song to listen to? When the refrain in your life is selfish, your song becomes ugly for people to hear. Yeah. Uncomfortable question, I know. But that's what I'm here to do, is bring up uncomfortable truths in part. Is your life producing ugly music? The blues, a top 40 station. How about this? Do you know what a psalm is? A psalm? Psalms is a book of the Bible, right? And I think you understand what an individual psalm is, too. A psalm is a song, or more specifically, a hymn. H-Y-M-N, like the one in our red books, a hymn for God's people, his Old Testament people and his New Testament people. And if you look at these hymns, you might notice that even though they're written thousands of years ago, they're like our songs today. They're similar to our songs today. One that I want you to consider is Psalm 136. If you want to look it up, great. You can find it in the Pew Bible in front of you. Psalm 136. If you have your phone, that's fine. You can pull it out and look it up on that too. Or you can just listen to me talk about it. That'll work. Any of those methods. Psalm 136. And if you look at that psalm, you'll notice something pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. It's that this psalm looks like a song that you might hear today. And what I mean by that is, it has verses and it has refrains, like I've been talking about. Psalm 136. If you're there, you can follow along, or if you're not, just listen. This is verses 1 and 2. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods. His love endures forever. What do we have there? Short verses followed by this short refrain. And maybe you're already looking ahead in the psalm that continues throughout the entire psalm. Let me break it down for you. So you have verses 4 to 9, which talk about God's miraculous acts of creation. You have verses 10 to 15, which talk about God freeing the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, another great thing he has done. And on it goes. And after each verse, after each wonderful act of God is mentioned, this beautiful refrain rings out, his love endures forever. That's it. Brothers, sisters, that's your refrain. Your refrain isn't a blues refrain. It's not self-pity. Your refrain isn't a top 40 refrain. It's not selfishness. It's not anything that Satan wants you to be singing right now in the song of your life. That's not your refrain. your life rings out with the refrain of his love endures forever. And I can show you how. From verse 1, where God gives you the miracle of life through your mother and father, to verse 2, where God gives you learning and growth as a developing child, to verse 3, where God gives you something stable, something firm, something steadfast to hold on to in that strange world of adolescence, to verse 4, where God gives you that same thing, but also the strength to mature into a responsible adult and find fulfillment in things like career, things like family. To verse 5, where God simply sits beside you with his promises of comfort and peace as you finish singing your song. Throughout it all, his love endures forever. Throughout it all, through whatever you're going through right now, however small, however enormous it is, that refrain is never silent. His love endures forever. Throughout it all, one chord in particular resounds. A chord that brings a sweetness to every sour note, a fullness to every broken note. A chord that is the never fading, always ringing gospel of forgiveness through Jesus Christ. Do you know what that chord does, friends? This chord presents to God the Father at the end of your life, at the end of all believers' lives. This chord presents to God the Father a song that is complete in every way, that covers over all of your unharmonious, discordant notes. A song that is complete and beautiful, that will never stop ringing into the halls of eternity. I hear that the 6th verse is indescribable. It's fantastic for all who believe in Jesus and trust in him as their Savior. And I can't wait to sing that verse forever with all of you in the acoustically perfected halls of heaven. Until then, live a life of thanksgiving to your God for all he has done for you. Let all who see you, all who know you, all who hear you, all who love you, hear the refrain of God's own child ring purely and proudly. His love endures forever. Amen.